Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. I'm John, he's Matthew, John and Matthew. That's the name of the pod. We appreciate anybody who is joining us live, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or if you're listening on the Bright Side of the Sun podcast network, we appreciate that as well. Matthew, how are you feeling?
Hey, I feel great. Thanks for holding it down at Four Peaks. Looked like a lot of fun. Was it a party over there or what, dude?
It was a damn good time seeing the Suns sweep the Denver Nuggets. We were there with Espo and Saul. We had the Fanning of the Flames guys there.
Yeah,
both Paul and Justin, Dan Duarte from the Coast to Coast podcast. It was a whole podcast community of people just coming together to enjoy watching the Suns win. You were definitely missed. I know we referenced you like numerous times in the podcast, but we understand that you had kind of a sore throat. You were getting real deep Barry White style on us, and I don't know how good that would have been on the pod.
It was like, I think it was a couple years ago when the Suns sucked and Kevin Ray was doing a game and his voice was just so hoarse and you couldn't understand his ass. And it's just like, that's what I would have sounded like. So I'm like, I'm going to sit this one out. I was laying on the couch. The only thing that got me up in that game was the fight between Jokic and Booker. But we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast is I didn't get to experience it with my podcasting partner. So I want to sit and kind of go over some of the things that we saw, recap, tie a little bow on that Denver Nuggets Phoenix Suns series, and then kind of look forward. Who do you want the Suns to play? What are we looking for in these other series? A lot of people are joining us right after the Nets defeated the Bucks at home after the Bucks blew a 17-point lead. What are we looking at on that side of the bracket? And then we're going to discuss the all-NBA teams. So sound like a G plan, G?
Yeah, sounds good. Good to be back, man. Been
awesome.
Too long.
It's good to have you back. And the Jamsters are, they're excited as well. Let's see. Let's pull up a couple here. Lissy from Hayden. Lissy back in the house from Blaze. Alex Kroll. Lissy's back. You're a legend. So a lot of people missed you being on the pod, as did I, my good friend. It's just not right doing a podcast without you. So, everybody who is watching, please subscribe, smash that like button while you're here. You can become an elite Jamster by clicking or the join button or following the link in the description. And feel free to donate to the show via the super chat so we can use it for ticket money. We want to go to the Western Conference Finals. Although I'm saving up my money to go to the NBA Finals. I don't know about you, Matthew.
There you go. That's where it's at because it's going to happen.
Yes, sir. And if you want to utilize our code SUNSJAM at manscaped.com, not only will you get 15% off, but you'll get free shipping as well. So if you need to shave your nuts, use our promo code. Doesn't rhyme, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to crack open something nice and ice cold. It is a canned Gatorade. Look at that.
Oh, look at that, man.
An orange canned Gatorade. And I'm here today to promote hydration to the Jamsters out there, okay? It was $1.16 here in Phoenix today. Hotter than hell. Just miserable. Work outside with my team. And you know what? You got to stay hydrated during these rough, miserable times. So I'm not drinking beer tonight. The one nice thing about the Suns taking a week off, I get to take a week off from drinking. So,
all right, there you go, man.
Matthew, you pounding water?
No, yeah, just water. One more day of being sick, so I'll be good after today.
Hey, you know what? You've been promoting hydration this entire season, so we appreciate that. Crack them if you got them, Suns fans. Ooh, sounds so nice. And let's talk about this series recap over the Denver Nuggets and look forward to the Western Conference Finals. Shout out to Blaze Megatron in the chat. He says, canned Gatorade, you can get anything in the USA.
It's so true. I was like, of course you have a canned Gatorade, John. I've never seen that in my life.
Gatorade. Well, so, one of the things that my chef does at work is orders water and Gatorades for the staff so we stay hydrated because we're working outside. It's hotter than hell. And I came into work today and he had fruit punch and orange canned Gatorade. I'm like, dude, I'm cracking that sucker open on the podcast tonight. And you know what? Cool, as Hayden says in the chat, he says, yeah, canned Gatorade. Yeah, it does have a little bit of an aluminum taste to it. It's not the most refreshing thing, but you know what? It does what it's supposed to do. It properly hydrates.
Oh, man. I don't know why that's so funny. It's the best.
Well,
love it. Good to be back.
I know. It's going to go off on tangents again.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a tangent there. But, we come here today to talk about the Suns' victory over the Denver Nuggets on the front end of this podcast. And, Matthew,
yeah,
as we look at the sweep, and it's so funny because it was literally like a week ago. It was just over a week ago. It was game one. And that Saturday before that, we had Flex on the podcast, and we're like, okay, what do we predict? What do we think is going to happen? Suns in what, or Denver in what, if that's what we thought was going to happen. And it literally took 6 days, and the Suns swept the Denver Nuggets out of the playoffs. As you look at that, what's your favorite memory from this past series?
I think, obviously, this Suns team just handled business. I don't think people realize how hard it is to sweep a team in the second round, especially a team supposedly surrounded Jokic that is not so good. It's very, very difficult to close these guys out. The way they did it, the way they just kept the lead up every single game in the fourth quarter, it's very hard to do for teams. And I just think that's really overlooked. A sweep is very difficult. But besides that, everything off the court is just amazing. What the Suns fans are doing in the stands, what Monty Williams is doing with Chris Paul after the game, post-game press conferences, what they're doing after the game, going to the crowd, giving hugs, stuff like that. It just shows how much this means to those guys, the Suns fans beating the crap out of Nuggets fans. I know you guys talked about that. And it's brilliant, man, because we are just right now, Suns fans, the Suns team cannot lose. No matter what situation life brings them, they cannot lose. So I'm looking forward to maybe someone like parachuting or something up on top of the stadium or something next time, just to like one up the last thing that we see on TV that's recorded on your iPhone to show everyone on Twitter. Because I swear to God, dude, what we're seeing from these fans and from the team off the court, it's fun to see this, man. And Jay Crowder was on Jalen Jacoby today podcast talking about that fight, and he said that they were in the huddle and they were watching it. And they were trying to stay focused, but they couldn't because they knew something was going on and they were actually watching it at the time. It's weird how those two things connect. I know it's a sweep, and it's been great ball from everybody on the team. Everyone's really stepped up, but everything around it, dude, it's really, really awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's an unbelievably memorable series, when you look back at it and you go back in time and you think of the 93 season or the 7 seconds or less era, the 2010 Suns. There's very distinct moments in each one of those playoff runs that you look back on fondly. And I think that this series really provided kind of a melting pot of moments for Suns fans to gravitate to. If you're not a Suns fan and you saw that guy kick the shit out of two guys who were trying to sucker punch him after dumping a beer on him, and then he's throwing the Suns in four, the famous Suns in four, hand movement, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm going for the Suns. And the people who were kind of standing on the sidelines, not huge Suns fans, the casual basketball fan, whether you're a Phoenician or not, all of a sudden you have a moment to kind of look at and go, you know what? This is a moment that I will remember. And, with the Suns winning around it, with the sweep occurring around it, it was just a fantastic week. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's 116 in Phoenix. Like, this is typically the time of year where we're all just fucking miserable. Walking seriously, you go into Circle K, you get there, you go to get your Gatorade, typically not in can form, and you just have a quick transaction at the counter. And you're grumpy, and the cashier's grumpy, and everybody's just meh. Yep. But because the Suns are performing in the manner that they are, when you walk in there and you're rocking a Suns hat, I had a lady at Fry's the other day. It's like, go Suns. I was like, whoa, lady. Like, hi. Yeah, I concur. I mean, there's just this different vibrancy that's occurring around this team. And it reminds everybody that this is a Suns town. And when the Suns are playing well, everybody just gets behind it because everybody cares, because it's fun. It's unique. It's special. Don't get me wrong. When the Cardinals play well, everyone gets behind them too. But it's a lot different because it's a week-to-week thing. where it's like it happens on Sunday, they're playing well. Dude, you see the Cardinals last night? Yeah, then by like Thursday, nobody's talking about them. And when the Diamondbacks play well, everybody's just shocked because nobody even watches baseball. But when the Suns are playing well, everybody's galvanized by this team. And to your point, the fight, it was a huge moment. The kid taking his shirt off was a huge moment. Getting the whole crowd going crazy. The way that the crowd responded in game 1 to the Cameron Payne to Torrey Craig slam dunk, another crazy moment. So, you look kind of collectively at this performance against the Denver Nuggets, and it really is, from a fan base standpoint, a catalyst moving forward. Because now we're playing with house money, right?
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, just really quick, the whole thing, and Espo said it too, this whole feeling is weird. It's a Lissy weird. It's a good weird. the references of me is just hilarious, the whole pod. But you're definitely right, man. I think right now the Suns really have the momentum. They have it going their way. There's only 2 teams really I am not really prepared to face. That was the Lakers and the Nets. All right, the Lakers are done. The Nets might be out. Who knows? But it looks like they won tonight. They might close it out in 6. Who knows? You said 7. But the Suns can make it to the finals, and they will make it to the finals. We'll go into these matchups, but this is just, they had to get past the Lakers, all right? They are, even the next series will probably be underdogs. They're not going to be as welcomed again around, the media way. They're not, a lot of these guys talking about the Suns now, once the series comes up, like, oh, they're facing the Clippers. Oh, I don't know. Oh, Utah. I don't know. They're the number 1 seed. So again, that's going to be the thing. But again, the Suns are the better team out of these 3.
Well, it's because they play as a team. And I think that the other side of this run that's so unbelievably fun is the product that Phoenix is putting out on the court. The 7-second or less Suns, they were unbelievably fun to watch. And it was exciting and it was revolutionary. But there was always kind of that inkling in the back of your mind that this is beatable because defense wins championships. The old adage is the old adage for a reason. It's true. It's happened in every sport. Pitching and defense ultimately wins in baseball. Defense wins in football. Defense, if you can have some semblance of it in basketball, wins. And we knew going into specific series that we were going to be dominated on the defensive end, and we were hoping that we could have our offensive firepower come together. Another thing that's interesting about everything that's going on right now is some of the backlash that you're seeing on Twitter. And I find it kind of hysterical at times, just because there's no franchise that is more defined by bad luck or almost. We lost the coin flip to start it all, and we ended up with Neil Harry Walk, which was great because Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo were talking on the podcast yesterday. They're talking about how the Suns started off getting Neil Walk because they chose heads. And tails, the Bucks got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and got a championship a couple years later. So you get a guy who's a 20-time All-Star, you get Neil Walk, who played 5 years in the NBA. And that's just the beginning of this franchise. You go through the history of this franchise, and there's injuries. There's the Joe Johnson injury after Jerry Stackhouse undercuts him. There's the Amari microfracture knee surgery injury in 2006 that prevented this team from probably reaching its full potential. There's the coming off the bench moment. There's bad calls or suspensions. There's all kinds of stuff to where, you know what, I'm okay if a few of the breaks, not figuratively speaking, but metaphorically speaking, are going our way. And as I see some of the hate coming from the murky abysses of Twitter, it's just like, okay, yeah, you're right. I guess we shouldn't be happy because the Suns beat a Murrayless Nuggets team and an AD-less Lakers squad. The breaks have always gone our way, so we'll just sit around and be mad at our success. That's what we should be doing right now. Damn it. Why did we beat the teams that we should in such convincing fashion? We should be ashamed of ourselves, Matthew.
No, you're totally right. We should, but there's 3 things. I'm just joking. There's 3 things that we got to take away from this. Number 1, Twitter. Who are you following? I don't see any of this on Twitter. I really don't. I think it's just because I follow Suns fans. So the banter about that, it's just it kind of reflects on after every season, after every NBA season, every NFL season, we sit back, we go through it, and we're like, well, did that team really deserve it? Probably not, because this and this happened. Was this even a good playoffs? I don't think so. Was this a good Super Bowl? No, it wasn't. What about this season? The season sucked. I'm just saying, has there ever been a season to where we finished it and we're just like, yes, this team won? Like if the Nets win it this year, it's like, yeah, they won because of the Nets. They had all the stars. Okay, there's the reasoning. They sat out the whole season. They came into the playoffs and they won it. They did the thing the Lakers were trying to do, and it succeeded. So I think we just have to accept it that this is what's going to happen. Either the Suns are going to win the championship or the Nets are going to win the championship. Suns are the better story. So, of course, if we do win, there might be the excuse, of course, with the injuries. Because if the Lakers were healthy, they probably would have beat the Suns. But that doesn't matter anymore because the Suns played this whole season at full strength. They played their asses off every night. No one sat out. No one ever complained about these back-to-backs. Oh, I need a rest or anything like that until the end of the season when Ayton actually got his time off. I just don't see why there would be any excuse. The Suns earned every game, every series that they won this year because they prepared like an NBA team. They're an NBA team. They're NBA players. They have to go out and play basketball, and that's what they did every night. So there can't be any backlash for the season if it does end in a championship or just a runner-up.
There'll always be backlash because people are haters, and that's what it comes down to. Hey.Zero just said that in the chat. People are just haters, and it's true.
They are.
Nobody can be. Everyone has to be miserable, just like everybody else. And to the Twitter point, I think I follow some of the national media, and I want to say that they're negative, but I think that some of the responses to some of their takes, now that they're pro Suns, that's where I'm seeing a lot of the hate. Is people going into the responses of something that God, who's a good example? Even like Ryan Russillo, if he says something pro Suns, and he said a lot of pro Suns stuff,
Chris Paul,
his love affair with Chris Paul. People go in there and they just like to hate. And Iverson Vlog says in the chat, he goes, "You need luck sometimes to win championships. Look at Golden State Warriors in 2015 when there was no Love or no Kyrie." And 2019 Raptors, KD and Clay hurt. It's the same thing with the Suns. If we're blessed enough this season to walk away with the Larry O'Brien trophy, don't think I'm not going to be bawling my eyes out. And if haters want to hate, haters will hate. But after you look at the performance that the Suns had against the Denver Nuggets, even if Jamal Murray was there, we were the better team. Jamal Murray is good enough to maybe force that series to go to 6. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, totally. He is that player.
Yeah, he's the guy who can get hot at times. He can score, not a great defender, but his high pick and roll ability with Nikola Jokic in the clutch is something that could have got them a couple games, and I'll definitely secede that. But at the same time, I'm not going to be apologetic for the way that this team plays. This team is so unbelievably entertaining because they play both sides of the ball, and this past series was a culmination of that. As you look at it, Matthew, I guess I got to ask, what is your number one takeaway from this Denver Nuggets series?
I think just everyone stepped up. Everyone had their opportunity to step up, and they did in this series. Saric, of course, in the Lakers series was not there. That wasn't really the case for anybody on this team. Anybody that was put in the game, really, even Cameron Johnson came in and hit huge threes. I think the one takeaway really, though, is just really going into each game and just making sure that they can take the lead, take a big lead, and keep that lead. Adjusting at halftime. I mean, the Nuggets crowd would always go crazy when they were so close to coming back in the game, and that was it. That was the way the Suns would play. They would keep it close, and then they would just blow them out, but not blow them out, but just keep it distant to where you're comfortable sitting there. You're like, yeah, they got this game. They're going to win this game. And I just remember being on the other side of that all the time when the Suns would play the Spurs, be like, yep, we lost this game. There's no way we're going to come back and win this. It's that fear that they're putting into these other teams, and I think to the other teams' fan bases where when they get these leads, man, they're just they can't give them up. It's tough for them.
It's simplistic basketball almost too that does it, because you even go back to the Lakers series and we won 3 in a row to close that series out. And yeah, I know there was no AD and he was a big part of their defense, but at the same time, you have to play the team that's on the court opposite of you. And you're right. The one, I wouldn't say the one, but one of the primary things that frustrated us during this season was when the Suns would go up big in the second quarter and piss it away by the fourth quarter. And even if they won the game, it was the fact that they pissed away the lead that would frustrate us. I remember an East Coast swing when we played the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors on back-to-back nights, and it was one of those things where that kind of happened. And I think we won both of them, or we might have lost one. But at the same time, we were just like, okay, middle of the season, I get it, but you're right. The way that this team has the ability to keep keep him at bay and has done so in the playoffs is unbelievably impressive. And you think about the way that they do it, and this is probably my primary takeaway is, goddamn, is it great to have Chris Paul on your team, because he's the guy who orchestrated this whole series. Is every time that crowd would get into it and, got a little bit more feisty there in Denver, he would just go down and hit a mid-range shot. And, just 2 points. They hit a big three. Yeah, here's 2. They go down, they hit another big 3. Yeah, here's another 2. They go down, they miss a 3, and here's another 2. Guess what? That's a plus minus of 0 on those possessions. And that's just how he operates. And, to see him, we've seen it before because we've watched the playoffs. At least I do every year. And I've seen Chris Paul in the playoffs plenty. And I've seen him operate the way that he does. But I really think that on Bill Simmons' podcast, when he was talking with Ryan Russillo, they really hit on something that is very true, is this is a Chris Paul team through and through. And when you think back and you look at Chris Paul's career, when he played in New Orleans, he was just too young. And by the time he went to the Los Angeles Clippers, that was Blake's team. That wasn't a team where everybody fell in line with his style of play and his leadership, because he was still kind of a young guy. And that was Blake's team and DeAndre Jordan's team. So they turned it into Lob City, and they couldn't play much defense. Okay, then he goes to the Houston Rockets, and that's James Harden's team. And then OKC last year was his first time when he really kind of took a team and molded it into his personality. And now he comes over here with more talent, and it's completely and utterly his team. It's built for the playoffs. It plays defense. It has a very distinct rhythm, and everybody not only has a role, but accepts the role. And I think that that's absolutely vital for a team to be successful in the playoffs. And we're seeing that to this point.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. And I mean, we haven't seen it yet to where maybe these games are closer. The Suns might be down a couple points late in the game, to where the frustration might kick in, because I just remember watching those Clippers games and just the body language Bill Simmons talks about too, being at the games. You can see how everybody was by themselves, kind of frustrated, yelling at each other. Nothing was really, going their way. And that really upset the team and it split them apart. So I think the way
you're referencing those old Clipper teams with Chris Paul,
yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah. That's what I said, right? The Clippers.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Chris Paul. And I just think this team might face that, but it's just because we're so young, and you have a superstar in Devin Booker who is willing to play along Chris Paul and have him be the guy, get the MVP chance at the line. He was second team All-NBA, which we'll talk about that later. But it's a guy that might get the accolades that you're not going to get this year. And I mean, the recognition from some fans over you. You might not be the superstar that you want to be on the team yet. And that's Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a guy that he can come in and he can play with these guys, but Devin Booker's so unselfish. This whole team is. Talked about DeAndre Ayton, number 1 pick, of course, coming in and just playing a back role, but that's just big. So we'll see when they face that. The altercations, maybe they will get in. Who knows? But I don't see that happening. I think this team is just so well together from Monty to the bottom. And I just think that now that we have Chris Paul too, like you're talking about knocking down those 2-pointers, he's the guy that we need when things get messy. He can stick out and he can be that guy to help lead the Suns to wins. And that is just huge in the playoffs. That is what every team needs. Durant is the guy, of course, for the Nets. And you see that from other teams. But the other 2 teams that you're watching right now, Utah, I don't know. Donovan Mitchell, maybe, but he's kind of hurt. Clippers, I don't know who's going to step up. Out of those 2 guys on their team, I have no idea. But right now, Chris Paul and Durant are the 2 guys that I'm focused on.
Yeah, you make a very valuable point there, and I think that it's worth noting is, we haven't seen this team really have a lot of clutch time minutes in the playoffs as of yet. And we haven't seen how that frustration might manifest itself. But given the reputation of this team, given the way that they've played this season, I don't expect them to be anything but calm, cool, and collected. I can't remember one time this season where I saw 2 members of this team fighting in the last 5 minutes after a possession because it didn't go their way. The selflessness of this team is what makes it great. Again, it's a team. And there's going to be some clutch time moments upcoming. It's not all winning by 15 points every game, although, over the last 7 games, it's just been a fucking party. It's been fantastic to watch. But, I think that as we kind of look towards that next series and we're preparing ourselves for the Western Conference Finals, Matthew. Like the Suns are going to the Western Conference Finals.
I know.
Dude.
It's amazing, man. I was throwing snot bubbles at the TV and all the snot bubbles.
I don't blame you.
I listened to the full pod later on, but I didn't get to watch you guys on the screen. So
No, one of the funniest things about doing the podcast there is, there's the whole chugging with the fellas thing that's going on right now, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I tried to do is I recorded myself earlier chugging a beer just so I didn't have to do it at the end of the game. So I did it once and I chugged the whole beer, and then I looked and I realized I hadn't recorded it.
Of course.
So then at halftime I did here's the second one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go once again. Chugging with the fellas challenge, and you can see it freezes. There I'm chugging. Saul comes in behind me. It freezes again. It's magical, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Was Saul lit or what, man? I've never seen him that excited. I've only met him in person 4 or 5 times, maybe.
Saul was having a good time. I think we're all having a good time. But it was really nice because Saul was just like super positive. Like he was so positive on that podcast afterwards because I think he has that aura that we all have right now. It's like, dude, we're going to the conference final. You weren't there to just throw that curveball. He
wasn't disappointed.
Damn it, Lissy. But I mean, this team won 19 games 2 years ago. And we, as Flex said on a podcast that we had earlier this season, we've skipped a step. You're supposed to be the team that, misses the playoffs, and then you almost get into the playoffs, but you just don't get in. And then you get in, and you're like a 7 or 8, 7 or 6 seed, and you just get your ass handed to you in the first round. But now you have that playoff experience. And the Suns skipped that step. They went all the way to the number 2 seed, and due to that, they've had home court advantage, and they've waxed teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, plus you had a guy like Devin Booker on your team that was just ready to burst. So the closer you got to that wall, he was ready to burst right through it, and that's what happened. That's what happened this year.
And it's going to be interesting in the Western Conference Finals to see how he responds. I'm never had more confidence in him in his entire career as I have during.
Isn't that nice though? Really quick,
it's unbelievable.
We don't have that player. Like I'm used to, Tony Romo of the Cowboys choke job. I defended my whole life. Oh, he's a freaking choke job. He was, and the whole team. And we don't have that. He's gotten to the point to where he's had a couple turnovers, of course, here or there early in the games, but who doesn't? Every star you'll see watching the playoffs will have those turnovers. But other than that, man, he has succeeded at every level in the playoffs. He's ready to go. He has not hit that choke job level.
And he understands his role. He's not trying to be Donovan Mitchell or Luka Doncic or these guys who are just so ball dominant who have to hoist up 30 shots in an effort to try to get 35 points. He just kind of plays within the confines of the offense. He knows that, in certain situations, especially on the road and or in closeout games, he's going to just attack. He's like, I'm going to set the pace in the first quarter, try to get this team up. And then from there, Chris Paul is going to take us home. And that was the recipe in both the closeout game in Game 6 against the Lakers and the closeout game in Denver in Game 4. He came out. He had 21 first half points. Chris Paul ends the night with 37 points because he goes absolutely apeshit in that second half. Suns win. I mean, it's like this beautiful formula that is working. And I guess that brings me to my next question. Who would you rather face in the Western Conference Finals? Because this is something that I go back and forth with daily. This is the disadvantage of having a week off until your next playoff series. Yeah. You're not just like, okay, it's this team, let's analyze them and go. It's like either or, and it's a 2-2 series now. So, Matthew, what are you thinking today?
I don't think I said this on the pod, but even when the Clippers lost Game 2, I texted Hayden, and he can maybe show the text some other time. I told him, Clippers are still going to win this. The way that they came back in those 2 games and pretty much should have won those. I just think that they should have won those. The series might have been over by now. But the way the Clippers are, okay, who do I want to face? The Jippers. Both of them, I don't care. I really don't care which one we roll against coming up in the Western Conference Finals. 2 reasons. First, go with the Clippers, because I don't really know who they are. And the team that I think they are, and I mentioned it before, it's just like they'll let teams do what they want a lot. They don't show up till it's too late sometimes. Sometimes they can turn it on like Kawhi Leonard. He can have that game. But they mess around with teams to where they might feel you out. They might just think we might take a couple possessions off here and there. You can't do that against the Suns. The Lakers found out the hard way. You cannot mess with this team. You can't think I can just take a feel-good game here in Game 1 and then we can come back and win the rest of the series. No, that's not what's going to happen. So the way that they mess around with teams and just kind of let them into games and not really take over, I love that. So I'm not scared of them. The Utah Jazz, they're a team to me that just doesn't have an identity. I mean, today, Ryan Russillo was perfect when he talked about Gobert, how he does disappear. Donovan Mitchell is there. He's going to hit big shots. He is just as good as Devin Booker. I honestly think he is. He's that guy on the court for the Utah Jazz. But it just depends where Gobert is, what he's doing. Mitchell has that fake toughness thing that might get into his head. He might try to take over, hit a big shot, and just, celebrate by himself. There's just, these teams are so individualized. I don't like it. The Suns are just a complete team, and they can not manhandle, but maybe 5 or 6 games they can take any of these teams.
So your answer is either or. Either. You don't care. You don't care.
Yeah.
So, I'll kind of break down my pros and cons as well and come up with some sense of a conclusion. When I look at the Utah Jazz, they are a complete team. They know how to play defense. Obviously, they have the defensive player of the year. They're killer on offense. They're the best 3-point shooting team in the league. It's one of the reasons why they were the best team in the league is they can shoot threes, and they shoot a lot of them, and they can play defense on the interior. So, I look at that. I think of the Ayton matchup against Gobert, and I'll preface everything with this. The regular season doesn't mean shit anymore. We were 3-0 against the Jazz. We were 1-2 against the Clippers. That 1-2 against the Clippers, in those 2 losses, Paul George shot like 14 for 19 from 3-point land. Like, it's just not sustainable. And, did it matter in the Denver series? We were 1-2 against them and we smoked them. It's a different season now. So I'm going to take everything that happened this season and not even go, well, in that one game, you really played well against Gobert. It's like, listen, I don't care about that. I think that the offense of the Jazz is susceptible to being streaky. And again, if you play in your rhythm and with your pace, you can beat them because you take them out of their game. And again, is the same thing as in the Denver series. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, shooting that mid-range, which is practically a layup for those guys, is going to be huge. It's also going to pull Gobert out of the paint in any pick-and-roll situation to open up Ayton. So I really like that. I think that the one disadvantage is the same disadvantage I kind of feel we had in the Lakers series, is they have Derek Favors to back up Gobert, and the size over Sarge is just huge. The Clippers are a smaller team, and they like to play small lineups, so that matches up well against us, but we can also match up well against them. So, playing Utah, I think that we definitely have advantages, but there's challenges as well. You do have that defensive player of the year, but we're not a team that necessarily lives trying to dunk the ball and get to the paint. You look at the Nets, for example, or not the Nets, I'm sorry, the Bucks, for example. Like, if it was the Jazz and the Bucks, like, it would be just an interest. The Jazz, the Bucks would have no chance because every possession they're just trying to dunk the ball. They don't have a ton of shooters. And we do have shooters, so I like that advantage. The Clippers, we have home court advantage. Obviously, that's huge, and that's one of the reasons why you play as hard as you do all season to get that number 2 seed. So if you're in the Western Conference Finals, you have an opportunity to have home court advantage. We play the Clippers, we do. The challenge I have with the Clippers, somebody brought it up in the chat, and I do want to give a shout out to it. It's Iverson Vlogs. This is the same thing I'm thinking. He's like, I'm kind of scared of the Clippers because they have 2 elite wings that can defend and score, and Paul George becomes the next Jordan against us. It's the elite wings part that I really agree with Iverson Vlogs on this one. If you have Paul George and you have Kawhi Leonard, you can run switches and get them on Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And that's what initiates our offense. So if you're playing the Jazz and you have to go against Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell to try to initiate our offense, and the lane's clogged up, that's fine. We've got shooters. We got mid-range games. We can run high screen and roll to try to get Gobert out of the paint, things of that nature. But if at the point of attack, you have both Chris Paul and Devin Booker trying to just initiate the offense, and you've got Kawhi Leonard and you've got Paul George to fluster them, and again, that creates other mismatches. I realize that. Patrick Beverley will end up on Bridges, so that'll be kind of the attempt is to try to get the ball to Bridges like we did in the series against Denver, where we got the ball to Bridges so he could take advantage of MPJ. The disadvantage, though, is due to the size and elite defensive capability of those 2 wings. They'll be able to close fast on any drives and things of that nature. Now, again, this is a series where Ayton could really benefit. He could benefit. Profit Ayton. Oh, Ayton watch 2021. But he could really benefit because Zubac or Vika, or however you say his name, Zubac Shakur is not an elite defender and somebody that he can own. So Again, these are the arguments I have with myself daily. Like I'll be walking at work, like, who do you want, the Clippers or the Jazz? I'm like, well, today I'm really not a fan of the wing defenders of the Clippers. Or today, man, that Jazz 3-point shooting really could be something that could be troublesome. But I think, again, it's a series. There's going to be a game in this series where if we play the Jazz, they're just going to shoot lights out, and we're going to lose by like 15. But in the long run, our type of basketball is winning basketball. And I honestly believe that either one of these teams, the Suns are going to be in 6 or 7.
Okay. No, that's good. I think, 6 is the latest. But did you see Gobert when he won the Defensive Player of the Year award and he walked in the locker room and they were celebrating?
Yeah.
Did you see how weak that? Okay, so body language kind of thing. It was the weakest celebration, so forced. Okay, and then when I'm watching, I don't think the Bucks are going to advance. When I'm watching the Bucks and Giannis fumbles at the end and he fumbles the ball and they just turn away, no one really yells at each other. They just look the other way. I don't like the way that these players on these teams, the Bucks, the Clippers, and the Jazz right now handle themselves on the court. Like I said, they're kind of individualized to when they're out there, they do their own thing. And if they're upset and they're missing shots, some guys taking a shot that they don't think should be taking shots, they don't say anything. I don't think they're not going to mention it. They're not going to say anything in the huddle. I think they just think that each one of them can win the game themselves out of those 4 stars. Well, I guess Gobert, Mitchell, I guess, they're stars. And then the same thing with Kawhi and Paul George. I just think if we get inside their head, because it's a mental game, Paul George, you can own that for sure right off the bat. Yes. I know he's had some good games this series, but it's very easy for him. If you ask him in 10 years from now, be like, what happened in that series, whatever series they lose this year? He's like, well, it's just mental. I had to get over that. For the next year I worked on it, something like that, because it's still there. That's a big factor. Kawhi, he'll go at you, but he's so quiet, man. I just don't think, they don't have that leader. They don't have that Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. That's why we're in this situation. And of course, as a whole, we are a winning team. We do everything well together and we communicate. And I just don't see that with the other teams.
They will both provide good storylines because if you have the Suns go against the Utah Jazz, it's 1 versus 2. But it's also Donovan Mitchell versus Devin Booker. And it's kind of the Twitter argument that people have been having for 4 years now, personified in a Western Conference Finals. And obviously, if we go against the Clippers, if Chris Paul wants to slay the dragon and get to the NBA Finals, he has to go through his old team. So that's another storyline that, would be. And then, of course, everything that lies on the other side of that. So final answer, you don't care, right?
I don't care. Suns will be in the finals.
And final answer for me, I think I want the Jazz. I think I would prefer the Jazz, and that's where I'm at today. Again, if I think we're going to do another podcast a little bit later in the week. When we do, I'll probably be changed at that point. So
okay. Take it easy on yourself, man. It's hot out there.
It is hot, man. That's why I'm drinking these canned Gatorades right here. So before we get to the next, because you were kind of mentioning the Nets and the Bucks and things of that nature, I just want to remind everybody to enter the code SunsJam at checkout for any of your online orders from Just Sports. You'll get 15% off of your purchase, 15 that is. That's right. Let them know the Suns Jam session guys sent you. Again, that's promo code SunsJam when checking out at shopjustsports.com. It's where I got this nice hat. It's where I got this dope shirt.
Beautiful.
I'm telling you, Just Sports, they got the best gear, and it's only getting better. So, now we go into the rest of the league.
Thoughts? Brains?
So, looking around at the playoff picture, obviously we've kind of discussed the Clippers and the Jazz a little bit. I don't in any way, shape, or form want to get ahead of ourselves, but if by some beautiful, amazing, spectacular occurrence we end up in the NBA for the 3rd time ever in franchise history, we're going to play either Philly, Atlanta, the Nets, or the Bucks. So let's start with the Philly-Atlanta series, and then let's talk a little bit about the Nets versus Bucks series. Have you watched any of the Philly-Atlanta series? Because I know the games start at like 4:30 typically.
Yeah.
They're hard to watch in our time, but have you seen anything?
I said I'm rough. That makes no sense. It's been rough for me to get. I mean, I do get to see the ending. Last night, I didn't actually get to see the end of the game. I heard about it on Rusilla's podcast this morning. The whole body language thing, which is a big thing too, that they have to work out towards the end of games. But I don't know. Let me get your thoughts on it. Maybe I'll just rebound off of that.
It'll be Philly in 7. That's just kind of the way it's going right now. I think that Joel Embiid, he must have like the most minuscule meniscus tear ever, because
I know
he's playing through it and he doesn't look necessarily affected until the second half last night. Like he was like 0 for 13 in the second half last night against the Atlanta Hawks, and if he had made like 3 of those shots, they win the game. So they definitely have the advantage. I think that they've done a good job defensively trying to bottle up Trae Young and just kind of make things hard on him. And kudos to Trae Young. I'm somebody who's never been a huge Trae Young fan, because of the way he head bobs up and down the court trying to draw fouls. I'm very excited to see that the NBA, in quotations, is going to take care of that next year as they look at changing some of the foul rules about leaning into trying to create contact. I think players like him and James Harden are going to have a hard time trying to adjusting to that. But kudos to him in the way that he's playing. This is his first playoffs too, and he really does have some Nash-esque qualities relative to just the angles that he plays and the way that he sees the floor. And, it's a 2-2 series right now. Philly, I think they kind of have that same problem that the Bucks have is, at times they don't know how to score. And I think when you have Ben Simmons on the floor in clutch time, that's one of the challenges. He's going to give you great defensive possessions. He's going to do a great job shutting down Trae Young and managing switches. But you put him on the offensive side, unless he's passing the ball in a fast break, his ISO game is nothing. He can't shoot, so you can just lay off of him. And if you foul him, he can't shoot free throws. One of the things that I love about the Phoenix Suns is if it does come down to clutch time situations, we're the second best free throw shooting team in the league. Because you're seeing this in the Eastern Conference right now with teams who just can't hit their free throws at the end of games, and how it's effectively it potentially could cost them a series. So do you know who the number 1 team shooting free throws is in the league?
Oh, like out of the rest of the teams right now, or just the whole league?
The whole league. The number 1 team still left. Who is it?
I don't know.
Clippers.
Who is it?
Clippers.
Is it the Clippers?
1. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for them, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if Embiid, someone just said in the chat too that Embiid doesn't look right. So I didn't get to see him the last game, but I know he did have a pretty big game the game before that. And you were talking about the tear. It is weird because it's like if you ever tear like a bologna sandwich, just a little bit, the whole thing falls apart. So I don't understand how he's keeping everything together there. Because honestly, if he's healthy, they would go to the champ. I think they can take on the Bucks. If the Bucks were to advance, they can beat them, but no one's gonna beat the Nets. But right now, what you're getting from the Sixers too, and what I'm seeing, it just looks like a team. I didn't get to watch last game, but to me, it just feels like a team. There's like a trade coming, right? I know Ben Simmons was in that trade thing with James Harden earlier this year. It's hard to like see a team kind of progress when you're seeing and hearing about the body language, and you're hearing about trades that were going to happen this season. Next season, there's probably, if they don't make it to the finals this year, there's probably going to be a trade. So when I think about that, it's just hard to see them advancing. And I think the Hawks, they can surprise somebody or some of these teams, and they have so far. And like you said, Trae Young has just changed his game so much to where he's just a better team player, man. So that is very scary with the shooters they have on their team.
I think that the sheer fact that they lost DeAndre Hunter, which isn't something that's like, meteoric and it just completely affects the whole outcome of the playoffs. But I think it's a big part of that offense because, again, it gives them a little bit more length. Another guy for Trae Young to kind of to dunk on. Another guy that you have to account for on defense if you're Philadelphia. So you can key in a little bit more on Trae Young, knowing that he doesn't have that secondary roller going to the rim outside of John Collins and Clint Capella. So, again, I think the Sixers will win in 7 games, but I think no matter what, whether it's the Bucks or the Nets that come out the other side, I don't think that the Sixers can keep it up unless Embiid's healthy, and we know that he's not. So, now we could talk about the Nets and the Bucks, and obviously a really big opportunity for the Bucks to win tonight over the Nets and take a stranglehold on that series and go up 3-2 headed home to Milwaukee. And they pissed away a 17-point lead. Again, really rough looking on offense. And you go back to, did you see the Kyrie injury?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
I was watching it live and I was like, damn, dude, that just hurts. Like, that hurts, man. And, you see them go down. And then James Harden comes down. He doesn't look great tonight, but he did what he needed to do. He got some really big assists as a part of that run in the third quarter that got the Nets back in the game. And then KD, wow, just played every minute, goes, almost gets 50 tonight, like 16 boards, 10 assists, something along those lines. Is this team beatable? ever?
I don't know, man. They're very, very scary. If it's just KD, I mean, they are. If he has one of those point guards at just like 80 to 90% health, I don't know if they're beatable, because those guys, Kyrie is probably the best point guard in the league if he's healthy and on all cylinders.
I don't know if we see him again, man.
I know, and that looked terrible, and it sucks. But if you're a Suns fan, it's kind of like, yes.
Here's my theory on the Nets. Here's what came to me tonight as I was watching the game, and this is why I think the Nets could be beatable, especially in the finals if we get to that point. Who's running the team right now?
Coach Steve Nash and Kevin Durant.
And who's his assistant coach?
Amari Stoudemire. Where's he at anyways?
The other assistant coach.
Oh, Mike D'Antoni.
Mike D'Antoni. Why could the Suns never get through to the other side in the playoffs? What was the one consistent
rebounding
thing?
and defense.
Okay. That's
Am I right about that?
No. Yes and
not
no.
that obvious. Okay.
But here's the other thing that we always had a challenge with, and when you go back and you start to watch some of those old games where Steve Nash was running point and we're in the Western Conference Finals, they were tired as shit because he only ran like 7-man rotations. KD just played every minute tonight on a repaired Achilles. You got James Harden out there putting in 35 plus minutes on a hamstring that hurts. So you got Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni running that team in the same fashion that D'Antoni's always run his teams. He puts the guys out there for way too long. They're interviewing Nash in between the third and fourth quarter. Is he going to play every minute? And he's like, well, we might need him to, because this is game 5 and it's a big game. It's like, I get that, but it's the second round. Like, you might not see it yet, but if you start to see them go into the next series, if they win this one, because again, I think we were talking about before we came on, I think that the Bucks do have a chance to go back home and win that game, and it'll come down to game 7. And if the Bucks lose and the Nets move on, that's a game 7. Then they go into the next series, and if they're playing the Hawks or Philly and it goes to 5-6 games, those guys are going to be tired. And then you have to play Phoenix, and Phoenix is a physical team. Phoenix makes you work for every possession. And these guys are going to be tired because D'Antoni and Nash don't run 9-man rotations. They just don't. It's not a D'Antoni staple. It never has been. It's, again, rebounding and defense. It's two of the reasons why the 7 seconds or less teams couldn't get through the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah. But go back and watch some of those playoff games, man. Steve Nash is fucking dog tired. He does everything the whole game. He's playing 43 minutes a game back then. It's ridiculous. So I think that might be an opportunity moving forward for the Suns if they end up playing the Nets in the finals. And if that happens, that is the ultimate series storylines. The Bucks, you have the 68 versus 68, the coin flip series. But you get the Nets with Nash and Amari and Mike D'Antoni and Chris Paul going against James Harden, who he played with in Brooklyn, or I'm sorry, in Houston. I mean, it's just like there's so many different styles. So personally, again, this is all being said if Kyrie's out. If Kyrie continues to be out and you have just those two guys trying to carry them to a championship, there's a possibility that their legs just might not be there. Those insane 3-pointers that KD was hitting tonight, those legs will be a little bit heavier come game 3 of the NBA Finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And honestly, is it something that KD wanted to do to stay in that game? Because I know that's D'Antoni's thing.
It could have been.
I think KD was just like, you know what? I'm not LeBron. I'm not walking down the tunnel right now. I want to stay out here and win, because
he was 30 either.
Yeah, and the thing is, towards the end of the game, there's so many timeouts, right? And there's some possessions he took off offensively just when the game was close. Him being on the floor is a thing to where the Bucks have to watch out for and adjust to always. So if he's on the court, it's still just, they have to look out for him, but he's still kind of getting rest there. So I think they needed him in there just for that. And of course, he can hit the big shots. Man, KD, right? I mean, he's the best player right now left out there.
Yeah,
out of all these series, he's the best player.
He's just a monster, and I mean, he's got one of those jumpers that I have always thought was absolutely beautiful. And then you see him go out there tonight and the fashion that he did it, just, cold-blooded. That's what he was tonight, man, was cold-blooded. So, we talk about the playoff picture, and now I'm going to just kind of transition because there's a lot of Nets here looking at the all NBA teams. And you look at the all NBA first team and you get Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard, The forwards are Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid. And then you have Nikola Jokic at center. So essentially you have three centers. I know that they play Giannis at forward in Milwaukee, but we all know he's better as a center. But you have one guard, a forward, and three centers on the All-NBA first team. Okay? On the All-NBA second team, you have Chris Paul. So kudos to Chris Paul. He made the All-NBA second team.
Yeah.
It is his 10th time being on the All-NBA team. He has 6 All-NBA second teams, 4 All-NBA first teams, and 1 All-NBA third team. I know that because I wrote the article today. Dame Lillard, Luka Doncic on the All-NBA second team, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, and then you have on the All-NBA third team, you have both James Harden and Kyrie Irving at your guards. You have LeBron James and Jimmy Butler with Bam Adebayo as the center. So in looking at this, is there anything? Let's just go through the first team. Did they get it right?
They did. It's positionless, right?
Yeah,
now,
that's
right?
the NBA right
Is
now.
it positionless? No, yes. I mean like the way they could vote on these. That's why you have the 3 centers.
Yeah, because they classify both. They classify Kawhi Leonard as a guard and a forward, and they classify Giannis Antetokounmpo as a forward and a center. So people have multiple. It's kind of like
multiple positions. That's what it is. Okay.
Okay. Positions.
Yeah, so you can't argue with that starting lineup. I don't think. I mean, I'm glad Luka's not in there, and I'm glad.
Me too.
I don't know. The first 2 teams look good. The first 2 teams I can't really argue with.
I'm going to agree with you there. It's that third team where I really have some problems with it. I mean, you look at Kyrie Irving, played a total of 54 games this season, and I get it. It's a 72-game season, so 54, it's not horrible, but then when you look at like Devin Booker, who played like 7 or 68, it's just kind of, and I think that's where my gripe is. I think that really you have a team like the Phoenix Suns who finished with the 2nd overall record in the NBA. They didn't win Coach of the Year because they gave it to the guy Tom Thibodeau. None of our guys made all NBA, first or second team all defense. And you get Chris Paul, and we only got 1 All-Star. Our second guy came in as a sub. Like the disrespect for the Suns just kind of continues, and I'm okay with it because again, I'm focused on that chip, man. They can have all these little awards, man. I want that chip, but I think the thing that really pissed me off is James Harden, man. I mean, he played 36 games for Brooklyn and 8 games for Houston. I mean, how does he make a All-NBA third team?
He shouldn't have, because if he was playing a full season, he would have probably been an MVP candidate, him or Kyrie. Kyrie, too. How many games did he play? Did you say already?
54.
54. Okay, so there it is. I think that has to be a big deal. I know Devin Booker got off to a slow start, but he was really deserving of a third team. Those are the 2 that I would replace him with. LeBron making it 2 is kind of strange. Maybe you can sub him out and put someone else in there too, but yeah.
What's really shitty is I'm going through and I'm looking, and these aren't even the right teams.
They're not the right teams?
No. I Googled this and I brought up this picture, and I think
this is awesome.
I think that this is the wrong team.
Oh my gosh.
Let me load up. It's not too different. Man, I feel like a jackass. Let's see if I can get the right shit up here.
All right. It's the internet, dude. Everything's fake, right?
All right. So this is from Shams. All right. So first team is Luka Doncic made the first team.
Oh, okay.
Chris Paul, Dame, Joel Embiid, Julius Randle, LeBron James. LeBron James made the second team.
Oh, he made the second.
Such horseshit. And then Bradley Beal. And the reason I brought this up because somebody said Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Beal. I'm like, yeah, Bradley Beal should have got it. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So here we go. We'll say this again for the listeners. First team, the Joker, Giannis, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard. That's pretty good. I don't like Luka up there, but that's pretty good. Second team is Chris Paul, Dame Lillard, Joel Embiid, Julius Randle, LeBron James. I don't agree with LeBron James there. Third team, Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Rudy Gobert, Jimmy Butler, Paul George.
Okay. Now that makes sense. Paul George is the guy I forgot about. He's well deserving as his third team. Kyrie, maybe not. Maybe you can replace him, but Bradley Beal for sure. So it is tough, man. I don't know. Now that I'm seeing the real teams, it's kind of like, I don't know.
After I fit you up for 10 minutes.
Booker is definitely well deserving of a third team, but it's hard to replace him with what Kyrie did, even though he only played the 62 or 68 games, he said.
Yeah, it's going to be, this is something that I really think that the the Booker lovers and the Suns, people who are upset with the fact that Devin Booker didn't make an All-NBA team, period. This might be the last year of this happening. You know, if he continues to excel and play well, now he has that reputation. That's what it comes down to. Every one of these guys has reputation. Paul George, reputation. Jimmy Butler, he got in on reputation. You know, he missed the first 16 games of the season. Rudy Gobert's a reputation guy. Bradley Beal, he's not a reputation guy, but he was the second leading scorer in the league, so you had to give it to him. Kyrie Irving, that's reputation. So these third-team guys are all reputation. But I think that moving forward, Devin Booker will have an opportunity to get in there. And, you know, again, kudos to Chris Paul. You know,
congrats, Chris Paul.
Yeah, Chris Paul, All-NBA second team.
We got one.
Very well. Yeah, we got one. You know, it's the first time. Can you name the last Phoenix Sun who garnered an All-NBA nod?
I think he asked me this before. It has to be Steve Nash, right?
It has to be wrong by Matthew. I love asking you. I love giving you trivia questions.
I love answering them, and I'm always wrong.
Does anybody in the chat know without Googling it? I'll give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. 2013/14 Goran Dragic. Yeah, there you go. Fabio got it. Goran Dragic
say that.
Got it in all NBA third teamer. So that was the last time we did. And then before that, we had it was 2007 and 8 where both Nash and Amare were on the second team. And that's the last time we've had two members of this team on an all-NBA team. But you know what?
Yeah. It's a reputation. You're right, man. And Bradley Beal was Bradley Beal before Booker was Booker, right? Bradley Beal, they never won anything, but he was Bradley Beal. And plus, yeah, he's second in points. So, yeah, he deserves it.
So there you go. So, you know, again, I'm not overly worried about these things. Are you?
No, I'm not. You know what? I kind of want to see Mikal Bridges get the second team all defensive. I mean, you can't really argue with who they selected, but Mikal and Booker next year for sure will be on those, and they well deserved next year.
If we're successful, I mean that's what it comes down to. Winning years. We come out and win 19 games again, Matthew. I mean, shit.
Yeah, then it's over. Then this podcast is done.
It's over. So, but again, you know, I think that we're focused on the big prize. You know, we'll know a little bit later this week who we're going to play next. I don't even know what the upcoming schedule is. Like, you know,
they said Sunday, right? Is the earliest the Suns might be on, right? Sunday night or something.
If it gets closed out in 6, but there's nothing. I don't have anything here. It's just like, good luck, figure it out. So, I mean, we sit back and we wait. It's going to be Sunday or Monday, you know, most likely. But it's nice to take a week off. It is, you know.
It is, right?
Do you think that it's beneficial for the Suns to take a week off? I mean, they've won 7 in a row. They've got a great rhythm. They're playing every other night, and boom, week off. You think that's a good thing for the Suns?
I love that question. I love answering this question because it doesn't matter, right? With this team, they're ready. My dad came out. He's all, is this team going to be ready to play after a week? I'm like, yes, they are ready for any situation. They could be off for 2 years and come back and still dominate any team. It doesn't matter because they're well prepared. Right now, they're getting ready. I'm sure they had a day off, right? Maybe 2 days off, and now they're back into it. They're going to be prepared for any team that they've had to play.
And here's the other side of that too, because I completely agree with you, is where are they practicing right now? Oh, yeah, at that beautiful $45 million Verizon Performance Center. You know, another one of those things entering this season that we were excited about as this culture for the Phoenix Suns was reinventing itself was we have this best-in-class training facility. So these guys are going to get rest. You know, Chris Paul's shoulder's fine, by the way. 37 points, his season high, the most points he scored in a game in like 3 years. You know, he's doing just fine. But this is a great place for them to go to, you know, again, feel that camaraderie, have a good time. Booker's probably playing a lot of Call of Duty right now. You know, I mean.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Hayden says in the chat, he says, Bridges was posting memes on his Instagram story today, so I think they were just chilling, you know?
They might be, and it's well-deserved, right? Monty trusts these guys, and I think I said well-deserved 100 times. And honestly, just really quick, I hope the Suns do play the Clippers, so then Booker can roll in with his new car every single game because he'll have him in LA and he'll have him out here. So every game he can roll into something new.
It's better for his relationship with Kendall.
It is.
If it's in LA, you know.
If you want them to succeed.
I'm rooting for him. Of course I'm rooting for him.
I love those kids.
You know, they're such an adorable little couple. You know, and well-deserved is, you know, you might have said it like 20 times. It doesn't matter. It's true. You know, this is a team that is designed for success. It's the moment they're back out there on the court, they're going to be ready to go. I think one of the greatest things that happened the other night is after they flew back from Denver and all the fans were hanging out at the tarmac in the airport there to cheer them on. And it was so cool. It's why I love living in these days, because I didn't have to go there. I didn't have to stand 105-degree heat. People had Facebook Live going, so I got to experience it through there. But Chris Paul gets off the plane. You know what he says? 8 to go.
8 to go. I didn't see that part. How did I miss that part?
That's Chris Paul.
Dude, yeah. And
8
honestly,
to go.
I saw the fans. It's fun. It's awesome. But just make sure you're not overdoing it. No one ruins it to where you start grabbing these guys or anything crazy, because it can get a little hostile there. So I mean, I think it's awesome they rode right through them. So, but just be careful. Don't ruin it for everybody. All right.
Just remember that when we're headed to the NBA Finals, ladies and gentlemen. So
yes.
On that note, I think it's time that we wrap things up here, right, Matthew?
I think that's it, man. The hour mark.
Yeah, we've hit about an hour. So this is a reminder for everybody to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the Phoenix Fans app. We're at Suns Jam. I'm at Darth Voida. He's
at Matthew Lissy. Sorry. I got a notification.
He's asleep at the wheel. That was Emma. Emma texted us.
Yeah.
Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and smash that like button while you're here. You can become an elite Jamster by clicking the join button or following the link in the description. Subscribe, rate, and review via the Bright Side of the Sun podcast network for all your favorite Phoenix Suns content. And leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read it right here on the pod. On that note, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. If you chose to do so live on a Tuesday night, we appreciate it. And if you're listening tomorrow, again, subscribe, rate, and review. But we'll come back. I think we're going to do Friday. We'll do another pod.
Yeah, we'll see how the series goes, and then I don't know. We'll play it by ear. You guys will play it by ear.
Just be ready, everybody. Be ready. But on that note, everyone have a great night. My wife just came and said sprinkling lightning outside, so I got to go see that shit.
Oh, I love that.
It was 116 today, so I'm going to go hang out.
Go take that. Pop that top off and go run in the rain. All right.
All right. Anything else, Matthew?
Everyone, go home and love your family.